Welcome to Psychic Talk with Jay and Sara. I'm Sara Green.
And I'm Jay.
We're two psychics with one microphone. And this is episode 16. If you guys have been following us on Spotify, today is the first day that we're trying a video recording. And we'll see how that goes. Because we knew you've been wanting to see us, right? Of course.
Yeah, just banging down the door.
Yes, of course. So last week we talked about Know Thyself, the step 2 in the empath book. And the week before we had talked about light language. And I just wanted to share a little story with you about a conversation that I had with my mom and my sister. And my mother is 92. And like you guys know, or you might know, that I grew up in a very conservative Christian Baptist family. And, we spent a lot of time in church. And so, I don't talk about being psychic. I don't talk about the empath program. I don't talk about the lighthouse at all with my family. But, my mother does know that I run an empath support group. And so she asked me about the empaths in the group. And she said, you must get tired of everybody coming to the group and complaining about stuff. And I said, what do you mean complaining? Yeah. She said, well, isn't everybody just sort of, dumping their problems? It's a support group. And I said, that's funny. I said, I guess I understand why you would think that, but that's not what the support group is all about. It's more about learning and growing and sharing helpful advice for each other. And sometimes, someone's going through something. So yes, of course, we're there to support them through a difficulty. But the group is more about growing together and learning. So she's like, what do you learn about? And, so my sister said, well, let's talk about what it means to be an empath. And so I thought that was cute. My sister considers herself an empath. And so I was saying to my mom, an empath is a conduit of energy. We see things that other people might not be able to see, and hear things. And she said, oh, okay, that's interesting. So she's just thinking about it. And she's actually empathic herself, very sensitive person, very kind. And so I tried to relate being an empath to something in the Bible. So I said, in the New Testament, it talks about the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And I said, for empaths, those gifts come really naturally. The gift of intuition and of, you've heard of speaking in tongues. And my mother said, oh, I remember going to a Pentecostal church and everybody was speaking in tongues and I hated it. I would never go back after that. She said it seemed like they were just putting on a show. And I thought that was interesting, and because we had been talking about light language a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about speaking in tongues and what's the point of it, right? And my sister brought up a passage out of Galatians, which is a book in the New Testament, where Jesus asks his disciples to go out into the world and speak in tongues because, they'll be going, traveling to places where people speak in other languages. So, so maybe the tongues means that everybody would understand the spiritual language. It would resonate with them on a soul level. So I thought that was pretty cool too, that she brought that up. And my mother, again, was just like, no, speaking in tongues, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's weird, she said. I said, you're right. It is a little bit weird. And then we got back to talking about empaths being psychic. And she said, I don't really like this conversation. Let's not talk about it because it's making me uncomfortable. It just doesn't fit with, and I asked her why. And she says, it just doesn't fit with what I know or what I learned growing up, going to church and reading the Bible. It makes me feel weird. I tried to have, more of a conversation with her, and she just kept getting more like, stop. I don't want to do this. As it's actually feels like I feel threatened right now. And I thought, Oh my gosh. The last thing I would ever want to do is make anybody, especially my cute little mother,
Mm.
feel threatened. So this is why it's not something that I talk about
Yeah.
with my family.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it just showed me, oh yeah, it's like it really runs deep
Mm.
what people learn as kids and what they hold on to.
Mm.
And you're afraid that someone's going to challenge your beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
that it's scary to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And even though I grew up in church, though, why wasn't it scary for me as
Mm.
an adult?
Mm.
It made me think about the steps again.
Mm.
This empath book that we follow in our empath support group. We had talked about this one step last week, know thyself. And it made me think of the step 5, soul recognition.
Oh.
And
Mm-hmm.
so in soul recognition, we talk about the earth as a school of higher learning.
Mm.
And everybody's at a different stage of learning, So some of us are old souls. Some of
Yeah.
us have a lot of wisdom and understanding and empathy and psychic, abilities come natural to us, and we can talk about it, and we're very open-minded. That's an old soul for you.
Yeah.
Whereas a younger soul is afraid of the psychic, right? Is afraid of thinking outside of the box of what you've been taught all your life. So I thought that would be a fun topic to talk about today, because go
No,
ahead. I don't want to
I was
interrupt
gonna
you.
say some of those young souls, it's not even they're afraid. They just their lens is young, so they look at it as just stupidity or something that's like gibberish. Some of
Or
them
evil.
or
Don't
evil.
forget that.
Some of them, depending on their doctrine, can look at it as evil too.
So let's talk about the earth being a school of higher learning. What does that mean? And why are some souls called old souls and some are young souls? Because all souls come from the same place. We all come from source. So how could some of us be older than others? Right?
It's kind of like if you look at it as a college and you look at, even further education, some people are in high school still, and some people are in higher learning. And it's just the difference is the older one has been reincarnating in this place longer and had to learn more curriculum. But the good news is when you're at that level of, in your curriculum where you're learning about and you're growing and you're learning the spiritual body, you're learning aspects of your spirit body, chances are you're outgrowing the reincarnation that this plane teaches, this duality place. So if that's your main goal with supernatural, spiritual, learning how to know yourself, and the more you know, the better you do, the odds are you're not going to really come back. Or if you do come back, you're graduated to the point where you're thrusted into a situation where you have lots of things to offer right away. As a child, you come in a structure that mirrors back to you the many incarnations that you've done. And now you might be born into a very affluent family or something like that. And you come into the understanding of being a steward.
Well, I think a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are likely older souls, because if you're listening to a podcast with the name Psychic Talk, then you're interested in psychic stuff, right? You're not afraid of psychic stuff. So you're naturally mature or older souls listening. So what about those younger souls? Does it make them bad? Of course not.
No.
Right. So what is the big difference? It's we're all on this journey of learning, and I think you had said it's how many lifetimes of experience you've had here on earth, because our souls have existed long before the earth, right? We've existed, outside of this dimension for eternity, probably for so long, we can't even grasp what that looks like. But, because this is a school of learning, it's incredible to experience to help your soul grow is to incarnate into the earth plane. So some of us have been here for many, many multiple, even thousands and hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. Whereas some of the baby souls are just incarnating for the first time. They're just in their first cycles. So, you're not going to be learning about the spiritual stuff as a baby soul. You're learning about the third dimension and what the third dimension has to offer. And it's the material plane. So you're learning about jobs and about the ego and about family and all those things associated with it. And then you just keep, having new lessons every time you incarnate, and that's your karma. And then as you progress through all of these many, many different lifetimes, you end up as an old soul, learning about your spirit and learning about unity, about, humanity as a whole, and becoming a steward.
And, interesting. And I love how you said psychic talk, because this is what we do when we get together and we're just sharing some
Right.
of it.
So this is like a window into a typical conversation that Jay and I might have on any given day as psychics.
I wanted to make a comment on the different soul levels that you were talking about. And you can, when you're an old soul, you have the awareness and the knowledge that you have a spirit body, a mental body, an emotional body, and there's different parts of you. And so as a young soul, your curriculum might just be on the physical body. It might just be what the flesh can do and relate to. And then as you graduate, mature soul, you might be on the mental body. A lot of people are learning curriculum that has to do with mental health, or they pursue those kind of lineages to teach them about their mental body and their emotional body. And then as the older souls, they're learning more about their spirit body.
Right. And I think, when some of us as older souls look at another person in judgment and say, oh, they're so egoic, right? They're all about the ego, and they're so materialistic. What a jerk. They're so selfish. They're so self-centered. So all of those attributes are that is a certain soul cycle that is for learning and growing too.
Yeah, it's
the
important.
young soul, right, is learning about, like you said, about the physical body. So some young souls are really into fitness. They might be into, making money and acquiring as much wealth as possible. And, again, materialistic and about the ego. That's just part of their learning. So once you come into that understanding that that's a part of the earth curriculum too, it sort of saves you from judgment, even though it's very easy for us as old souls to fall into judgment of younger souls for being closed-minded or not having empathy.
Well, it's true. And one of the ways to combat judgment is, to gain the wisdom that every person outside of yourself, every circumstance is a mirror reflection on you. So whether that person's black, white, Chinese, none of that matters. It's like a mirror. And any interaction you're having, one should take a moment and either look at their younger self. So if you're dealing with a younger soul, you look at them with eyes to say, that was me. I relate to that. I get that. And see them where they're at in their growth and meet them there without judgment or anything. And if you can offer a point of advice that could help them, you're talking to your younger self. What would you tell your younger self if you met your younger self and he or she was greedy and you had to always have all these cars and things and showing off? What would you say? Instead of judging, you have a different perspective and you reach a point of neutrality. So it's different.
It's amazing when you know that and you're not judging and you see them for where they're at. So if you as an older soul, you can think of yourself in graduate school, right? And you could look at a young soul or a baby soul as being in elementary school even, or high school, So, if here you are, you're working on your PhD and you're sitting in a cafe, you're on your laptop, and in walks this young soul and you can overhear the conversation, what they're talking about. Oh, I made this much money and I bought this thing, and oh, look at me, and all about the ego, right? So you're sitting there, a PhD student, and you're looking at them, and you realize, oh, they're kind of like a fourth grader or a fifth grader or a high school student. I'm not going to make fun of them for being younger than me, right? I'm going to see them, like you just said, as a younger version of me who is still learning through those experiences.
Right.
Because before you can get to understanding your spirit and your spirit body,
Yeah.
you really have to know your mind and your body, right? To get used to, like, if you're incarnating into the earth school for the first time as a soul, well, your soul doesn't have a human flesh body,
Right.
right? So it's like, oh, look at this body. Wow, I have 10 fingers and 10 toes. It's like, it's so new to a baby soul. So a lot of those earlier experiences are about getting to know the physical body
Yeah.
and, having a family and having children and that, when you look at people who are, like, I think of some baby souls who just want to stay at home, have kids, raise a family. They're into cooking and baking and crafting, and they're so happy doing those things. And they don't want to venture outside of the simplistic things in life. And it makes them feel safe and secure. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as you get older and you're mature soul, an older soul, that's not so satisfying to you anymore because you want more. You're seeking for something more. So that's just an example of and you start to think of people in your life who are in those soul cycles. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I used to judge that person for being so simple. Or I used to judge that person for being egotistical. Or I used to judge that person for being so materialistic. So I think it's a huge learning lesson for us as old souls to know that the earth is a school. Because those baby souls and young souls are never going to know. I shouldn't say never. They don't understand that the earth is a school, right?
No,
and so what's the
won't.
point of
Yeah.
trying to teach them or tell them that?
Exactly. And we are eternal beings. So, one trip down here of one life doesn't really serve you when you're eternal. You might pass through this dimension, which seems like, thousands of lives seems like so long, but eternity is long. I can remember, before I even met you, I knew anything about this stuff, the empath material. I look back and I was just tossed to and fro by what other people were doing, weren't doing, were saying, weren't saying. And
Getting mad at people for, right?
yeah,
Or
like
frustrated with people.
frustrated.
Yeah.
And it puts you in a sense of constantly judging, even if you don't realize that that's what you're doing. And it wasn't until I started learning about the different souls and the ages and the curriculums that now, given those circumstances, I'm no longer affected by what someone is saying, doing, not doing, because of that knowledge of, wisdom of looking at a mirror. Whoever I'm dealing with is an aspect of me, wherever they are on the spectrum. It could be on a hate spectrum. It could be on a mean spectrum. It's just, I see differently now. So I'm able to kind of observe instead of absorb.
Well, you just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say that. We talk about that in step 3. Step 3 is self-preservation. And I don't mean to be jumping around through the steps so much, but there's so much wisdom there. And I like to just take tidbits out of it and sort of, talk it out, share a little bit with you guys. So observe, don't absorb. What does that mean? Well, it does mean just listening to other people and recognizing, you could recognize their soul age or recognize that they're on a different path than you, but don't absorb, meaning don't let it affect you emotionally. Don't let it get to the point where you're feeling judgmental or upset. You see a lot of that, we talk about division in this world. People get very, very upset about what other people are saying and doing or not saying and not doing, just getting really emotionally charged over it. And a lot of that does come down to, soul development. We don't understand what that other person is going through. We don't know what their karma is. We don't know what their soul age is, but we can sort of make an educated guess, right? I can say that person has a lot of karmas and is going through their own lessons. That person, they're a young soul. That's what their karma is right now. How far be it from me to judge them for what they came here to learn about, right?
And it's hard to change people anyway from what they're learning, and you bring up a good point of observing and identifying or taking intuitive psychic or just educated guesses of their soul age, and also looking at what body they're working with. Some people, you get their soul age, but then when you hear them speak, you realize that the lessons they're learning are mostly for their emotional body, or it could be their mental body. But this helps you on navigating the circumstance and being a mirror for them. So they're a mirror for you and you're a mirror for them. So they might leave you with some form of, wisdom that you might shed to them that they get later on, so it's just fascinating stuff.
Well, I see what you're saying. So you might give them a pearl of your wisdom that they might not understand, but maybe later in their life, they might reflect on it and say, oh yeah, I remember this guy told me something. Oh, that makes sense now.
Right.
So offering little pearls of wisdom, or you realize that they're not going to understand what you're talking about. Like so many of us as empaths or spiritual people, we get mad or frustrated or annoyed or sad that, we're trying to express ourselves and explain what we're going through about this awakening process and about the new earth and all that. And the other person's sitting across from us, and we might be in a relationship with them, and they're looking at us like, what are you talking about?
That's just
I don't understand what you're saying, and I don't really care, or that's weird, or they're scratching their heads. So a lot of people, a lot of empaths get upset, and they think, what's wrong with them? Or what's wrong with me? Why can't they understand me?
I can think back to times in my life where I'm trying to get this person to see things my way. And it's like, once you know someone's soul age and what body they're working on, you wouldn't want to do that. There's no point in trying to make somebody see something your way, the esoterical way or the spiritual way.
Right, because they won't.
They won't.
They won't. And like I was talking about my mother earlier, we used to butt heads, and, I would get upset with her. And when I reflect back on that, I feel really bad about it, because I understand that she's a really young soul, a beautiful soul, but really young and very unable to get what I'm saying. So, or what we're talking about. And that's okay, because people don't necessarily need to understand what you're saying.
Right.
But I think a lot of people like us find ourselves very lonely in the world, because other people aren't speaking the same language necessarily as us. So we have to be careful who we talk to and strategic about it, and not get our feelings hurt because someone doesn't have empathy.
And meet people where they're at, So
meeting people where they're at.
Meeting them where they're at. You used to say to me, know your audience. And it took me so long to grasp what you were telling me.
Well, yes, because you would be talking and explaining and getting frustrated and then repeating yourself, and the other person's not really responding the way you want them to. Yeah, know your audience is basically the same thing as saying meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's the big takeaway for step 5, soul recognition, is trying to understand where a person is at in their soul age. And then once you do that, just know that, okay, they're not going to necessarily groove on what I'm grooving on right now. They're not going to want to talk about vibrations and frequencies and psychic stuff, right? They're not. Talk to them about what they want to talk about.
Right.
It might be cooking. It might be traveling. It might be crafts. It might be sports, so, or, there's some people that you just might not resonate with, and you don't have anything to talk about. And that's okay too. You don't have to be friends with everybody.
No, and the only way to lead with younger souls is by example. So if they see something that you've done or are doing and they ask about that, well, then you've done great. It's definitely not about, numerology, astrology, and every other facet.
It's frustrating though when you're trying to talk with a young soul who is a jerk, right? They're critical, they're self-centered, they're maybe narcissistic, um, and materialistic, and obviously don't have empathy, and we understand that you don't develop empathy until you're really at the end of the young soul cycle and entering the mature soul cycle. You're learning empathy then, and only then. So you can't really sit in judgment, but at the same time, if someone's a real jerk, there's that's a tough place to be in. And I think a lot of old souls or empaths are finding themselves in this day and age, especially on social media, and when there's so much division, that they're engaging in a lot of very frustrating arguments with people who, they just don't see eye to eye. And I think the soul age is a big part of it.
I think you're right. And thank God that, when we do reincarnate, you also, because of past lives and past experiences with people, your immediate circle usually is reflective of your age, varying some degrees. And then your family might be even way different than that. But there's a bond there because it's also reincarnational. And it's very few that you're going to be with that narcissistic person or that young soul that's so critical. And if they are, you just ask yourself, well, maybe I'm here to learn a lesson from this person. What am I doing or not doing that I've attracted this into my life? So it's a mirror. Everything's a mirror.
Well, when you resonate with someone and you say, oh, they've got good vibes, or I'm just vibing with this person, it's a good sign that that person is a soulmate, meaning you're in the same soul group. Soulmate, you hear that, like there's one person out there that's your soulmate. And that's not really what soulmate means. It's like a part of your soul tribe or group, people that are in the same cycle as you, and you keep reincarnating together, going through a lot of the same lessons together.
Well, it's a good point. Look at our the empath, just the group that we've
the people in the group. Yes.
And it's just, you can tell it's part of your soul tribe. We're learning, loving, and growing together, but it's familiar. It's like we've known each other before. It's very odd.
Yes. So, and you could say deja vu with that, and there's a resonance on a soul level with these other people. And it's a great gauge for us as empaths and psychics to use that gut feeling, that resonance on a soul level. It's like, how do I feel around this other person? Well, I feel good around them. I feel happy. I feel jovial. I feel a sense of joy and kinship. That's a good sign that this is a good person for you to have in your life, and that they are, in your soul family. You can call it a soul family, tribe, group, whatever the case may be. And soul groups, what a fascinating topic that is, because if you look out at the different groups, political groups, religious groups, other types of groups, other clubs, these are all signs of soul groups.
Soul groups, for good or bad, without judgment. It's like hate groups or love groups, red groups or blue groups, whatever it is, it's like for higher learning. All the curriculum that they've gathered together is teaching them something,
Right. And I know sometimes you talk about Black Lives Matter and the Ku Klux Klan. Those are soul groups.
Right.
Of course, one is about racism and the other is about healing racism. So those are soul groups. If you look at the NRA, the National Rifle Association, or hunting clubs, those are soul groups.
Yeah.
Art clubs, though, and church communities, those are soul groups too. So there's a huge variety of places of learning in the Earth School, right? So it's almost like you're looking at a classroom in a high school or college setting, depending on what the group is.
Yeah.
Right. And you can understand where they are on a soul level by the things that they talk about. You know,
birds of a feather flock together.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And it's your soul group.
So hopefully we've shed a little bit of light on the Earth as a school of learning. I just think it's really fun to talk about what resonates with us on a soul level. And you know how when people, you talk about soulmates or people are in relationships with each other, you know, like it used to be like, oh, we've got chemistry together. Is it chemistry? It could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
or is it debt?
Well,
it's like karma.
Of course, you always go to the karmic debt and stuff, which is fine. Well, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
No, but I mean, it's like it's a frequency. You know, so every soul group or soul age has a frequency that you resonate with, right? So you're vibing with these people. Well, they must be on the same frequency as you. It's like a radio dial. You know, we talk about the psychic abilities being on that radio dial too. You know, so everything around us has a vibration and a frequency, and people do too. People, places, and things. And you know, when you learn, when you're a sensitive person, or you're psychic or an empath, however you want to frame it, intuitive, you know, you're tapping into frequencies and vibrations all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know Jason loves to talk about karma, and that's our step 6 in the empath book, which we can talk about on another podcast. Soul development.
I am a karmic
You
weirdo.
love talking about karmic debt.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, which is really great. That's like that's his topic, and I think the soul recognition stuff is a little bit more my topic.
Yeah, I would
you
say
know,
that.
Would you say that?
I would. It took me, it's still like you tend to grab the soul thing really well. And I was still kind of learning. That's why you're like, know your audience. Like, you know, there's a lot of stuff.
It's true, because why waste your energy?
Oh, that was.
You know, we have limited energy every day.
That's right.
And the more psychic you are, the more sensitive you are, the older you are as a soul, you have very limited energy because you're a conduit. You're easily drained.
Yeah.
So we want to be very, very careful with our output. Especially talking, right? So when we're trying to explain ourselves to other people, and they're not really understanding,
right,
or they're not listening,
right,
what's the point?
And just the energy it takes to harness words. People, you know, spelling is spells, and when you speak, that is such an amazing gift. But the throat chakra, the energy it takes to push out that stuff, if you could really see it, you'd be very limited in what you say and the conversations you have.
That's interesting, because it's proximity to the heart too, you know, because a lot of the speech, it comes from the heart as well. And so when you're using your heart, following your heart, like we talked about last week, you know, it can be very, very draining. So that is something that we talk about a lot in our empath group. And we can continue talking about more as we go forward with other podcasts.
Well, thank you for pointing these things out, because I was at that time, I didn't understand the follow your heart thing. So my heart was in the driver's seat trying to talk so much to the young soul.
Yeah.
And I look back and it was like, why? Why did you even waste any of that energy doing any of that?
Well, we can all look at different examples in our own lives of trying to do the same thing, I'm sure. I've certainly have done that quite a bit myself. So, but no more. I'm telling you, no more. On that note, what do you say we talk about current events?
Boy, oh boy, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, because there's been a lot of current events. You know, today is September 12th, and as everybody knows, the shooting of Charlie Kirk happened on the 10th, and that has caused so much outrage on both sides of the Hill Republicans or conservatives are very upset that their beloved friend Charlie was murdered in front of all these college students. And then, people on the other side, liberals, Democrats, whatever you want to call them, are up in arms about what Charlie was all about. And so it seems like this act of violence, this senseless, horrible murder, has really triggered a lot more division in this country, or it seems like it's amplified the division that's already there once again. So this is really, really sad on all accounts. But metaphysically, it almost seems like it was a strategic move by the hidden hand to bring this about.
Yep.
And will it create solutions for the division? I don't know. I hope so.
I don't know, but that hidden hand is mighty in some of the way it moves, and it's so covert. And if you don't know, you're not going to see through the mirages and the illusions that they put up. You can't believe much of what you see or hear. If you go back to times like Kennedy or other assassinations that had taken place, and you look at the shenanigans in between, like, I don't remember the details, but there were different shooters and this guy's responsible than that guy. It's almost like they orchestrate these movements so that you really don't know what's going on.
Smokescreen.
A lot of smokescreen. And at the end of the day, the hidden hand, whoever truly is responsible, I know they're showing some person's face and they're, will walk through whatever they do. But, you're never going to really know the force behind the circumstance because it's such a high level you're dealing with. Well, it makes it difficult when you're dealing with such a broad hidden hand circumstance. The sad part is because it's the hidden hand, they can do something and then it will spark other things to happen, such as the people on the right will then blame the people on the left. And the people on the left will then blame in the middle. So it's a constant, mix match of energy and none of it's based in reality. Like, you just don't know because the hidden hand is beyond left and right. And, it's tragic.
It is tragic.
It's tragic.
And simultaneously, yesterday, I don't know how many college campuses were closed because of bomb threats. And I know some of them are Black universities. So there is a lot of fear out there of more violence and retribution for this as a backlash. And you also don't know who is making all of those threats to the colleges. We've talked in other podcasts about the war isn't a traditional war with bombs, right? Coming across the ocean and so on and so forth. But it can be in mysterious ways, like this shooting. I don't know. Is that an act of war?
Well, it is.
In a sense, it is.
It's a spillover of war. And what is the war? Well, some of the hidden hands, you have that zodiac wheel of families, and you realize it's the old world and the new world is the war.
Can I just say something? You talk about that zodiac wheel of the families. We haven't really clarified what that means to the audience, So there's old families or bloodlines here in the earth plane who have had, positions of rulership or jurisdiction over the human condition. And these are not human families, human bloodlines. These are, if you want to call them extraterrestrial, alien, but non-human bloodlines. So if you want to speak to that a little bit, Jason, go ahead.
I just,
you brought it up.
I'm sorry.
You brought
Sometimes
it up. You opened
why.
that can of worms.
Oh, jeez.
So,
it all started with good intentions long ago. These families or these bloodlines are real. And, one of the families is a satanic bloodline. It just is what it is. And that's the way it is. And there's other families that are comprised of different. And when they put out the 23andMe and all those DNA testing things, that was strategic, coming from very high places to organize all that, because they wanted to take inventory of the bloodlines, how, markers. They were looking for, different hybrids. Like a lot of people are hybrided by their genetic code, and it has nothing to do with skin color. It's so silly. It's either in you or it's not in you. You could be black as midnight or white as snow, but if you have the markers, then it is what it is. So they took inventory on that. But these are families that a lot of them have degraded over time. If you look at the 12 tribes, the 12 disciples of Christ,
or the 12 tribes of Israel,
or the 12
right?
tribes of Israel, but anyways, without getting too much into that, you just, there's an internal dynamic war going on between the new and the old, and some of the ones that they call ETs or whatever are returning, and the old world knows this, and there's a lot of ownership type things going on, and looking at the way the world has been left, and it's pretty much
like a change of the guard or changing of hands, because they're each given a certain amount of time to rule.
Right.
So thank God, the gods, the goddesses, that we have entered a new paradigm, that we have entered the new earth, and this is the time of the goddess rising.
It is.
Right?
Yes.
And the return of Christ as well. So we can look forward to healing and peace and a triumph of empathy and love, and the meek shall inherit the earth. And that's the children of light.
Right.
So I know we went off topic slightly
because
we were
fault.
talking about this whole thing with the murder of Charlie Kirk. It sparked so much division, and we were talking about a hidden hand. You just don't know the reason behind it. And then you brought up the zodiac wheel, how there's a power struggle in a way, but they also know that their time is up. As the old world is going away, their time is up. So we should look forward to more truths being revealed, as we talk about a lot, and the return of love. So another thing in the news that I wanted to talk about was this congressional hearing where they showed a video of a Hellfire missile being shot at or directed at an orb or UFO, and it bounced off. And I know it made mainstream news, and it's being talked about on social media, which is really awesome and funny and disturbing at the same time, because I'm not disturbed about the UFO or that orb. I'm disturbed that they would try to shoot it down without knowing who it was. But what I didn't realize until this morning is that it was off the coast of Yemen.
Oh.
And this is going back a while. I mean, this might have been a year ago, or at least earlier this year. So it didn't just happen. This is a video from something that happened some months ago. So you want to talk about that?
Well, this is news to my ears too. So this information you're talking about, is this on the mainstream news?
Yes, it is. So there was a congressional hearing, and this video was shown of a missile being shot at this UFO, and it sort of bounced around, but it didn't break up or anything. So yeah, and the guys who were having a look at it, this hearing, they all said that they were scared. They didn't know what it was about, and it made them scared. Wow. Can you believe that? They admitted it right there in Congress. Yeah. So, but they're scared of the UFO, not so much at the missile. So anyway,
it's just
different point of view, different perception. We're coming at it from another perspective, but.
Well, I mean, it's troubling if that's in fact what happened, and that they would take a shot. And I know that they just get orders, and those orders get orders, and it all leads back to hidden hand, So I guess they do what they got to do, but that's a surefire way to let other beings know exactly where you are in your development. The fact that it just kind of bounced off shows you that if they wanted to dismantle us all within a nanosecond, they probably could do that.
So it was like child's play. And it also underscores that they're not just going to land. These UFOs aren't just going to land. Why would they do that when people are so violent? people are trying to shoot them down. Why would they want to come and help humanity? You got to ask that question.
And on top of that, it's just the frequency down here. How would you expect beings that are vibrating at a certain frequency and come from places and spaces that also vibrate at certain frequencies to then step into this place? It's going to feel so uncomfortable if they had to stay here for any period of duration, but just because the frequencies are so lower in its origin. There's a lot of lower vibrations that are amongst us in this earth because of
division. It always comes back to division.
Mm-hmm.
The goal for humanity is to unify and for people to love and accept one another, regardless of beliefs, regardless of skin. I mean, you would think that we would have evolved beyond that a long time ago. You say it's stupid, and it is, because a lot of people who hold on to these beliefs, especially politically, don't believe that they're being divisive. They don't.
That's
right?
That Satan house. There's a few houses that put out certain situations, and that house loves racism and loves division and any kind of lie it can create to keep people divided from growing in love. That's their goal. But once you realize what's what, you can step outside of it and truly be free. Being free is knowledge and wisdom. That's what's freedom. Money is not freedom. Money can make you feel like you're free, but you're still not free. So it's an interesting paradigm.
Well, it is, and I think a lot of old souls fall into the trap of division. What we were just talking about today with soul ages, because whether they understand soul ages or not, they're still sitting in judgment of souls younger than them and being angry about it and not being neutral about it. And that's really contributing to the division. And we're powerful people. And so by being angry with the other side of whatever you're not agreeing with, it's like it's generating an energy. It's generating, it's a toxic environment, and it can only grow with more division. So again, a lot of spiritual people fall into this category, and it's, we just like to caution them to be more neutral. But what I find kind of ironic and funny is a lot of people are offended by neutrality. Like they want you to believe in what they're believing, right? They believe this is right. And if you're staying neutral and you're not taking a stance, like a political stance, it's like, how dare you be neutral, right? And, we have a different, like a metaphysical understanding of neutrality is it's more healing and it helps to transmute vibrations.
Yeah. And to take a neutral stance is the best way to move forward with all things. Neutrality is really important. I'd like to circle back to the fact that you saw the UFO stuff on the mainstream. And I love that because I haven't tuned into what they're saying, but just the fact that people are bringing it into the house of government in one of their central houses, it really is good because we have had experience with, interdimensional situations. We have scientists that have also experienced it with us. So it's very real. But I look back at all the ridicule and people like, what do you mean you're having and so it brings me joy to say, not only is it good, it's now time for the world to come around.
I'm glad that you said that because it's just reminding me of something that I had a friend who, we must have put a video out early on and we were talking very openly about being in contact with interdimensional beings. And he said, I was going to donate to your nonprofit, but I'm uncomfortable with the whole UFO thing, so I'm not going to donate. He really said that. And we were also, like you said, ridiculed, criticized, and made to feel like weirdos, for so many years. And so we really pulled back with the conversations because I don't want to open myself to criticism. I don't want people to be making fun of me. I know what I've experienced. I know it's real. And I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable too. So it's a weird, it's been a really weird and uncomfortable topic for us to talk about. But now that it's on the mainstream news, it validates us and it makes it a little bit easier to talk about now.
Well, it does. And somebody that's, so judgmental, oh, I like your thing, but the UFO thing, I'm not going to donate. These same very people will see the Congress is now dealing with real things, showing real videos, giving real documentation. And maybe he'll wake up in his meager brain to say, oh, they really were doing something good because the government said it's okay. It's like the marijuana thing.
Exactly. Yes.
Now we have dispensaries, so it's okay, 80-year-old going in getting your gummies.
Right. It's interesting of how consciousness works, how sometimes it does take, when the mainstream grabs onto it and televises it, then it becomes real to people. Or if it becomes law, like marijuana becoming legal in the state. Oh, okay, it must not be so bad after all. It must not be evil, right? So there's so many things that need to be validated for people, for them to say it's okay. But again, that's a soul development thing.
It really
it kind of goes back to that. Some people just can't handle it.
Yep.
And for that reason, I really don't think that UFOs are going to land and make themselves known to masses of people, because they wouldn't want to disturb the baby souls of the world who would be so deathly afraid. So I don't believe that they're just going to land and, make themselves known with open contact. I don't see that happening. Not anytime soon.
Let's hope not. I mean, there's different ones of them too. So
they got
the triangle ones, the discs ones. They're all different. It's not like General Motors makes different cars, but they're all cars, right? No, there's different beings and different ships and different expressions of themselves.
Right, and some come from the ocean, so they'll rise out of the ocean. Some are coming through portals like in Antarctica, or gates, stargates, you might even call it. And some come from the upper heavens.
That's right.
And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about that so-called comet 31 Atlas that's hurtling through the sky.
Oh, yeah.
That, it could be a sign from the upper heavens that wake up, humanity. Wake up. More is to come. So there's been a lot of UFO sightings.
And if that does crash into the ocean, it's strategic as well. If that, whatever they're looking at, does end up breaking up here, then it's seeding things here. It's leaving something here that can be helpful in changing frequency and helping to assist a development. So it could be a technology attached to, this situation.
That would be exciting.
Yeah.
But the big question is who's going to find it? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when you say seeded, it doesn't mean that a person necessarily has to discover it and figure it out.
Not at all.
It's actually just going to be here doing its thing without needing a human interaction.
Correct.
Right?
And most likely it would be not to be discovered, It goes into this plane of existence.
So it'll be in the ocean somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Hopefully we'll have more to talk about on that topic. I think that would be really cool and exciting.
Well, let's touch a little bit more on Charlie Kirk now. I didn't even know anything about him or anything until this came on.
Right. I had heard his name and I didn't know where. And then I had to look into him. My first inclination was just to say he's just a cute guy, beautiful smile, beautiful family. How sad.
Yeah,
I hated that video. Anybody could watch the gruesomeness, a horrific shooting. But so what were you going to say about him?
I have ended up.
I mean, he was a divisive character, evidently.
Well, I did see, not a lot, but a couple of his debate type situations, and he's very clever, very smart, very witty. But when you speak, your words spells. Again, it's like spell casting. You're creating when you're speaking, good or bad. And if you are speaking in divisiveness or not to unite humanity, then a lot of that energy goes out and ripples, and it also returns. And when it's going out, because you have different consciousnesses and soul groups and soul people at different levels, they might feel and hear what you're saying and then feel it, and they might take offense. So again, if you push division, division will come back. If you push violence, violence will come back. Whatever we are putting out in the universe has a return factor. It's a universal law. You can't get around karma, and you can't get around what you're putting out into the universe.
Right. It's the law of attraction too. If simplistically, the universal law of attraction, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what karma is all about. So
it's very sad though. I think about it and it's like when somebody's following their heart to the point that it rules their whole being and it leans towards hate. That's a very dangerous, dangerous tool. And the fact that somebody would want to murder another person is just not good in and of itself. And I understand divisiveness and all that, but my goodness, that was hidden hand. That was more than what it looked like. It was a lot.
Well, I have a feeling it's going to have a greater implication in this country than we're aware of right now. I hope it doesn't escalate to more violence and lockdowns like we saw yesterday at the colleges. I really hope that people can figure it out and really understand that unity is the goal. Coming together is the goal. Somehow finding common ground. It's the only way to be.
And they're so close together. There was a train incident where somebody stabbed somebody else right on the train. And then prior to that, there was, I think it was political, but 2 people got murdered, I think in Colorado, that had political ties as well, all within a short period of time.
Yeah, and there was another school shooting in Colorado as well. And so it goes back to the frequency in this country of it's just a lot of unrest because of the division and because of the collective karma we have. So part of the reason why we're here on YouTube is we want to gain more traction with our podcast. So, if you're watching us for the first time and you like what you're seeing and hearing, subscribe to this channel and subscribe to our Spotify channel as well, because what we're saying is common sense, but it's uncommon in this world today. Because I think most of what's out there has a divisive message to it. And, again, we're talking about karma, which is another topic that isn't discussed enough in the spiritual community. And we would love to see more of it, wouldn't we?
Yeah. And what did Jerry Garcia say? Only the insane are sane
in an insane world.
It's just, it's funny, but.
So that's it for current events. And that brings us to our karma spotlight for today. And my pick for this week is a young girl by the name of Mackenzie Greenwood. I would say she's only like 10 or 12 years old, but she is from Hampstead, Maryland. And I chose her because she started a food pantry in her own community, just herself. She saw the need and, she started and she named it the Little Free Pantry. And anybody from that community can come and take what they need, or they can donate food.
Wow.
And she's got other kids volunteering with her. And she gets donations from her church and from her family too, and other donors who keep food on the shelves. And she says, it feels really good to know that what I'm doing is helping a lot of people. And, she just wants to get that message out there and keep doing it. She's adorable too. How about you, Jay?
Mine is an Indian yogi mystic named Sadhguru. I have to read from this because I just do. He established the Isha Foundation in 1992. It's a nonprofit organization that works towards educating spiritually and environmentally. What I like about this person is that when he speaks and gives you the wisdom that he's obtained esoterically, it's very common sense. It's not a lot of fluff. It's right to the point and it's wise. So he comes across with these small wisdom tips that are extremely helpful, even to the youngest of soul. If you just were to check him out. His Isha Yoga is about inner engineering, teaching people how to really know themselves with their mind, body, and spirit. And he's teach millions of people worldwide. So that's about power, transformation in their lives. And that's a lot of good karma when you've reached that level. You're here burning so much karma, and he knows his sole purpose. Does a lot of public speaking. But this is what I also like about him is that he gets his hands involved with stuff. He has a grassroots movement that takes a lot of volunteers he's put together, and they plant trees all over India. It's to restore the rainforest and things like that, teaching people how to work with soil and a lot of hands-on activities that he does for the earth and for people in their spiritual development.
I love that. And you know what I love about what you just said is the common sense wisdom that anybody can understand.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we have to really remember. And again, it goes back to meet people where they're at as spiritual people who are teaching, to keep it simple. Keep it simple so that everybody can get involved and understand it and learn something through it. Because if we're using this high esoteric language when we're talking about things and we're trying to reach a big group of people, sometimes it just falls on deaf ears. Or some people might think that I'm not smart enough. I can't understand that, so I must not be smart enough. So we never want anybody to feel bad, right?
No.
So making it common sense for people is awesome. I really like that.
Yeah, he's great. Just check him out.
All right. So we just want to say thank you guys for joining us today. And we've enjoyed being here with you on camera again after so long. We do want to get ourselves out there a little bit more. And we're not trying to be influencers.
No.
And we're really not into the social media stuff necessarily. That's why you'll see us and then you don't. You'll see us and then you won't. Because, we're private, behind the scenes type of people, but we know that what we have to say is really important for people to hear. And we hope you've enjoyed listening to us. Again, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I want to shout out to Annie Bagai for producing this show. Our music is by Flint, and we are from Metaphysical Lighthouse, a love-based grassroots organization founded by psychics and scientists working together to build a better world. See you next week.
Adios.